So full disclosure, we're going to Photoshop some cleavage on you in the thumbnail.
Excellent.
Because
I mean, I've never really showed any in videos, so this will be a
you
first.
haven't? Why not?
No, the internet will go crazy. I'm just a nice
Exactly!
conservative girl, you know.
You hang out with Theron Meyer and Milo Yiannopoulos. No one thinks of you as a good conservative girl. All right, we are back, and already Not Gay Jared has screwed up. Send your complaints to @NotGayJared. I fulfill my legal obligations, but follow him and draw your own conclusions. Particularly Saturday the 14th, I would recommend you check out the pictures. So next guest, I'm very excited to have on. We've discussed certain topics when we've been in Google Hangouts with Milo Yiannopoulos, and I've worked with the Rebel TV up there in Canada, of course, where I was raised. So you can go to the Rebel.media, I think, or follow her on Twitter, Lauren_Southern on the Twitter. I have messed this up brutally. It's because Not Gay Jared screwed me up. Lauren, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Stephen, and I apologize for being, what am I, an hour late. I am the worst guest.
Actually, it was my fault because I visited my family they're in Central Time, so when I put it on our iCalendar, so honestly, it was just a screw up all around. What we generally do in these instances is we just blame Not Gay Jared.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so
that works for me.
He'll be fired. You okay, Not Gay Jared?
We're good.
You're
good. It's par for the course. So I was prepared for this going into 2016.
It is par for the course.
So we're good.
So Lauren, okay, so you work with the Rebel Media, right? There was Sun News, and it's up. Now, when I was there, I've talked about this with Gavin and Ezra. There were no conservatives. I mean, I was raised in Quebec. I understand you're out in Western Canada, but in Quebec we had liberals and liberal separatists. So before we get into, I know you've talked a lot about gender politics, and we'll get into immigration. How would you sort of identify yourself? Do you think you're more libertarian? I mean, in Canada, terms have different meanings.
Yeah, for Canada, they would consider me an extremist on the right still, just
Yes.
because I'm a libertarian, but I would consider myself a little more conservative on my own level.
Okay.
But I wouldn't want to force on people, that is. They say that the Republicans are always 20 years behind the Democrats. Here, it's like our conservatives are 5 years behind the liberals.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Stephen Harper. Stephen Harper was the first guy I voted for, though, and I remember none of my friends in Quebec. I mean, he might have gotten like 1% of the vote in Quebec. I have no idea. No one I knew outside of my direct family. Like,
No one in my age group either votes for him. I miss him right now, to be honest, just because Trudeau is just hilarious, just ridiculous with every policy he's put in place.
Well, he's the social justice warrior prime minister. He is the total identity politics, metrosexual, androgynous, sort of tranny looking, just a really, really weird, uncomfortably politically correct dude. And like him or hate him, with Stephen Harper, the one thing, and there were a lot of things I didn't like, but there were a lot of things that I did like. You kind of knew where he was going with things. He didn't really pull a lot of bait and switch. Do even most liberal Canadians recognize that, do you feel, about with Stephen Harper, even if they didn't like his policies?
No, they just kind of had the party line that they would repeat why they hate him. Oh, he passed Bill C-51. Oh, Harper bought a few jets a few years ago that costed this amount of money.
Right.
Oh, Stephen Harper is a warmonger. And that even though we barely got involved in any wars, Trudeau is very likely going to waste far more money than Stephen Harper did on his jets that he bought.
Right.
And Trudeau signed Bill C-51, the information bill, where they're similar to your Patriot Act in Canada.
Okay. Yeah,
and that's most of the stuff that they have on Harper, they're going to have on Trudeau eventually.
Well, that doesn't matter. That's not relevant to intellectual political discussion. What can you slap on a bumper sticker? Hey, make Canada great again. So
it's 2015.
Right. Yeah. You've discussed a lot about gender politics, and obviously you went to the feminist slut walk, as they call it, and asked some great questions. That's how I became introduced to you. But you've been talking now how you have something going up. You're talking about immigration a lot, which I'm curious to sort of hear your thoughts, because in Canada, it's not the same hot-button issue as it is in the United States. Generally, because you don't have a massive demand of people just running over the border trying to get in. And my dad was a legal immigrant to Canada when he married my mom, and we lived there. And my mom is now a legal, she has legal status in the United States. So she's been going through the process really her whole life. So we've always been abreast of it, but we were always sort of surprised as to how ignorant Canadians were on that issue. And now you were kind of telling me off air, it's devolving a little bit. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You were talking sort of like, is it the multicultural segregation?
Yes.
What's going on?
Well, the Canadians don't really talk much about immigration, you're right. And I think it's because we get a lot of very peaceful immigrants. We don't know what it's like to have like Germany, where they're having tons and tons of people come over their border that aren't necessarily peaceful.
Right.
And also they kind of screen them to make sure that they're going to get a job when they're over here. So we have a nice kind of an immigration. However, what we're seeing now, and I'm going to have a video come out maybe today, I'm not sure when this is going up, but today, tomorrow. And it's going to make a lot of people mad just because I do discuss how multiculturalism in Canada, although we do have a lot of peaceful groups coming here, it's completely segregated. The kind of multiculturalism they sell to us with the government, where everyone's holding hands around the globe from their different cultures, and the forced diversity shoots for university campuses that I have been in and dragged into for campus. That's not the reality of it. We've got areas that are 70%, 80% just one group, immigrants from one area. And not only that, this has caused a little bit of an issue over signage, because I can't go into areas and shop in certain areas because none of the signs are in English.
Right.
And you can walk through entire streets without seeing English or being able to speak your language.
Also, depending on the area, a little bit more rape. Yeah, that's something too that people don't
Really?
like.
I haven't looked at those. I'll have to check out those.
Little rapey, the Islamic cultures. It's kind of a trademark. All the great Smav have their calling card. Des is rape. So it's, you see that with Sweden. Sweden's become the rape capital of Western Europe, and in Germany.
We don't have a huge Islamic kind of area in Canada yet.
Well, we did in Montreal.
In Montreal, you did?
Yeah, in Montreal. Well, Montreal Westmount was where most of the Jewish population was. And there were a lot of Lebanese, so some of them were Lebanese Catholic. But, I mean, I had a lot of Muslims at school. I've talked about this at Centennial, where I watched a few of them laugh at 9/11. And every single Muslim I knew at Centennial Regional High School in Greenfield Park, every single one hated Jews. No exceptions.
Oh.
Hated Jews, Lauren. It wasn't like kind of maybe. He hated them. And I remember being so surprised when I asked him after 9/11 about Osama bin Laden. I said, okay, walk me through this. Osama bin Laden, according to your religion, you believe in hell, right? Yes, we believe in hell. Okay, so he's going to hell. None of them would say no. None of them would say no. As a matter of fact, if you said yes outright, and if you were like, well, it always depends, and you weigh your good deeds and your bad deeds. So where I grew up, there was a lot of that. And that was a big part of what shaped my view. I actually read the Quran because it was handed to me at the Islamic club at Champlain College. And I thought, like, these have to be typos. This is incredible. So I guess I don't know what it's like in Western Canada. But when you say segregation, so how does that shape up? Is it like New York where it's organic and it's like, okay, the Greeks are here and maybe you have like this area that's Jewish, or literally just they don't even speak the language, they don't assimilate at all?
Yeah, it's obvious natural. I think that a lot of people, they aren't encouraged to even become a Canadian or know what the Canadian identity is when they come here. So they'll just go to kind of the sects where it's like, oh, this place already speaks my language. Why would I bother to learn this whole new language when, quite frankly, I never have to?
Right.
I can just go to this one area. And I remember in the video, you'll see it, there's this one school that was literally 100% South Asian. Every child there was South Asian, and they were all speaking the same language, and it wasn't English. It was just like, you can grow up there too and never speak the language. There are schools that are segregated as well.
Yeah, well, it's weird. In Quebec, we have a warped view because of the language laws. So it's the one area in order to try and promote multiculturalism of a conquered people, the French people, who should have been spanked and, no, sorry, bitches, you're speaking English. We let them have their little area, and then they try to exclude English people. And the signage, that's what I was thinking you were talking about. You know, in Quebec, French writing has to be exactly 2.5 times the size of English writing on any sign or menu. And Stevens Diner, at least when I lived there, I don't know if they still have the language police, Stevens Diner, 'S, shut down because it's English writing. You can't have an English name.
Really?
Yeah, to the point where they were even thinking of changing the name of like Burger King and all of those things in Montreal. I don't think it went through. So that's what I was thinking you were talking about. We talked about this with Gavin. It's sort of the reverse where they call it pure laine, means pure wool, and trying to keep like pure French European blood. Well, their language laws encouraged a huge Haitian immigration. Little known fact. French Canadians, some of the most racist people on the planet. So now they find themselves in a quandary. Is Montreal not even considered Canada to the rest of Canada? That's what people have told me.
I've never been there, to be honest, and I haven't had too many conversations
What?
about it. We don't talk about your coast. We're the best coast.
Well, it's true, and you seem like you haven't screwed it up nearly as badly as Eastern Canada has. So, okay, so how do you compare it to like the United States and in this sort of project you're working on? What would be a better way to do it? The melting pot, the United States, making sure they learn the language, or is that just racist? Are you a racist? You're a racist.
Racist. I think the word racist doesn't have any meaning anymore. So people call me one for stating facts, stating that people are segregated. I guess so. But with the melting pot, that's one thing. When people come to Canada, they aren't told like what a Canadian identity is, that
Right.
we should be talking to each other, we should be working together. Instead, our current government's motto is diversity is our strength. And if you get a chance, I'd watch the video where Chrystia Freeland, one of our gender balanced cabinet chicks, she's one of the new ministers.
Wait, is that an official position?
No. I'm just assuming she was brought on to make the.
Oh, okay. I thought it was. I thought it was.
Did you watch that speech where Justin Trudeau comes in and they ask him, Justin, why do you have a gender balanced cabinet? And he replies, it's 2015.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess instead of like qualifications or resume,
Yeah.
the year works as well.
It is the current year, and now they're selling shirts of that for on the website for $100. It's amazing. But Chrystia is one of the ministers in his cabinet, and she went and debated Bill Maher, and Bill Maher is like, Chrystia, you can't just like bring a ton of people in from a different country that are from an entirely different culture, especially one like Islamic culture, where a lot of them are going to be
rapey.
Rapey or radical. And Chrystia is just like, you can just hear her, she's triggered. She's like, diversity is our strength, Bill. Diversity is our strength. We don't say things like that in Canada.
Yeah.
And Bill is just losing his mind talking to her. And that's what Trudeau and her are like. Trudeau's done a diversity is our strength speech as well. But when you go and you look at it on the ground, that's a myth. Being segregated by race and language and all these different things, that is not our strength. Being able to talk and communicate and maybe share different cultures under the same language and not natural segregation. Sure,
Right.
that might be a strength, but that's not what's happening in reality.
Right. Even if you don't believe the Judeo-Christian faith at all, like the tower, just think of the Tower of Babel as an Aesop fable. Like it should be the perfect analogy. Well, okay, now we're all speaking these different languages, and it really screwed us over. Yeah, it is, and I do think, and people like you and Milo and Gavin. And, I'd be humbled and honored to include myself. I think there's a movement afoot where you're never going to have young people politically turn toward conservatism yet. Convincing them of tax law when they don't really pay taxes, it's tough. The free stuff is still an easy sell. But the diversity and the political correctness and this really, cultural Marxism is thrown around so much, but that's what it is in this case. I definitely, you've gotten in this more recently. I've been doing this for a while now. I've noticed a significant shifting, a changing of the tides where people are open to hearing the things you have to say, and they don't just call you a racist anymore.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when you say it so many times, it loses its meaning. And even the people who are called racist so many times, like probably yourself, myself, Milo, it just rolls off our shoulders. Trump doesn't even have to acknowledge it anymore. And people don't even focus on that because it's like you can keep calling him a racist. He's not even going to acknowledge it. That word has no meaning.
We have
it's
to
a
go
little
to
different on campuses. Oh,
Yes, we have to go to a break, and we will bring you back because I want to get into the campus talk and discuss it.
Excellent.
Lauren Southern, therebel.media. Louder with Crowder. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back with the one and only Lauren Southern. Follow her on Twitter at Lauren_Southern. Canadian, but is on top of American politics as well. So you were talking about this. We were talking about how there is kind of a shift in people speaking out against political correctness, not really accepting the being called a racist, being called a sexist. You mentioned it's different on campus. I still maintain that on campus, the majority of students just want to get to class and get their degree. It's this small percentage that just make the loudest noise.
That may be true, but even the rest of the students, because of the climate that is on campus, you don't really question the narrative, especially not in classes, because the professors won't accept the narrative being questioned. On campus, there are the militant groups, are these SJW groups, so you don't want to get in trouble with them. Keep your head down, laugh when the professor makes jokes about Republicans or conservatives, and whenever someone in the class dares to question that, make sure to laugh at them too.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a teacher. Well, this could be. Her name was Helen Holt. Her name was Helen Holt at Champlain College. Helen Holt at Champlain College took off all the Christian holidays, Jewish holidays, and apparently there were Buddhist holidays because she was like some tantric Buddhist or whatever the hell it is. Looked like a female Drew Carey. To give you an idea of the kind of psychopath she was, she would read books, correct them with a red pen, and mail it back to the authors. And it was like Greek it was some kind of mythology. It was a humanities course. It was the only one left. And she told me, first she asked, who here is considered themselves a Christian? And I raised my hand. And she said, you're probably not going to pass my class because you can't open your mind enough to. I was like, we're learning about Hercules. Like, this is not. And I did fail her class. And then I had another teacher who was very far left, and we connected because we both did judo. And he's the only teacher who ever gave me 100% on 2 papers that I wrote. And so there is hope there. I do think there are some decent people. But yeah, there are a lot of Helen Holtz in the world. And I remember just being like, I just can't believe this is allowed. And it goes unfettered. But I don't think most of those students would have been far left. Like you said, you think they just sort of accept the culture by default?
You know what, thinking back, when you get to the real crazies like your professor, I had a real crazy professor in my first year, and I don't think the students liked him much because of that.
Okay.
Maybe, I think it's still the heads down thing, but I did hear that I was kicked out of this class in my first year. This professor, he taught us to spell everything wrong because he was part of some kind of progressive English, you can spell it however you want kind of group. And this was an academic writing course. If you ever get the chance, look up the poet Bill Bissett.
I don't want to.
No, you should. It's hilarious.
I don't want to. Well, you Canadians spell everything wrong anyway. You put a U where it doesn't belong.
The front page of my academic writing exam had a poem by this Bill Bissett guy. And it's a poem about how George Bush should be put in prison for war crimes, and his entire everyone that was on his campaign staff, everyone that worked for him should be killed, except killed was like spelled Keeled, and should was SULD.
Well, hold on a second. Is the logic behind that, because I've read about this before, is it that certain people in impoverished communities or minorities who don't have access to the same kind of education may spell things differently, and that's okay, so we should accept all of it? Is that the logic behind it? Because I've read those theories before.
That might be it, but you'd have to look at Bill Bissett's website because it's all in Comic Sans, and it's all different colors, and the words are all over the place, and like it's purposely made to be bad. It's postmodernism, I think, more so than it is social justice-y, but everything we read in this class was social justice oriented. Like, Israel is bad, here's how Black people suffer,
right.
LGBTQ, everything we read in that class was social justice oriented, even though it was an academic writing class.
How long ago was this?
That was a year and a half ago.
Well, guess what? A year and a half ago, it wasn't LGBTQ. It was LGB.
Oh, I'm sorry.
LGBT.
I am a bigot.
It certainly wasn't LGBTQAAI, as they're now saying. And that's not, people think I'm joking with it. LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, depending who you ask, asexual, allies, and intersex. And some people want to add P for pansexual. So it'd be LGBTQ AAIP. And I'm not, so when people think like I'm not exaggerating, when I add like the silent F and a number 5, but it's not that far off.
They might make me take me to prison in New York for getting that wrong too now with the pronoun laws or.
If I'm a landlord in New York, for those listening, we've talked about it. We've written about this extensively on the site. In New York, if you're a landlord and you have a communal restroom sometimes, kind of like a hotel. Rooms will have their restrooms, but sometimes there's a main restroom. And you make a man who claims to be a woman use the man's restroom, you can be fined, and really to the point that your business is in peril. If I'm a landlord in New York, I go, men's room, and I deal with the consequences. We're actually going to have Theron Meyer on after you, who is a more libertarian transsexual who disagrees with a lot of this. So there are those people, and I get a lot of emails from people like that who are gay, who are alternative, and they feel. I think what's happened. You tell me if I'm wrong here. I think with the same-sex marriage thing, now that that's done, leftists have lost a big tool, and now more people are looking at their other ideas and realizing there's nothing there for them.
Yeah, they need that victimhood, so they just keep getting new cards. All you had to do was watch the Democratic stage to see all of these white people on the stage trying so hard to get their victim cards. I'm a woman, and I think it was like O'Malley. I'm younger than you guys. I'm from a different generation.
Right.
And Theron and I go out for drinks all the time, actually. She lives right near me. And yeah, no, Theron hates that nonsense, but
Yeah, and I know we'll disagree, but I'm willing to have anyone on who can have a sensible discussion. Okay, so the immigration issue, we'll be looking forward to that, and we're seeing that here in the United States. I think that's just an issue where it's one of those issues where I think it shows you that the Democratic Party, and I don't know if it's the same in Canada, is no longer really for the working class. It's for the non-working class and the elites. You know, I'm smoking my meerschaum pipe with my glove, and the people who are on welfare or people who are looking to remain permanently unemployed. Because even Democrats, and I realize we have to go to a break, longtime Democrats who work have a problem with immigration, illegal immigration, right? It's not a winning issue with those people because they don't want their jobs being taken. But it seems like the Democratic Party has abandoned them. I wonder if it's the same thing in Canada. Last real quick, and then we'll go to the web extended version, if you can fit it in 20 seconds.
Sure.
Any thoughts on that?
Oh, in Canada, oh man, well, we're so to the left that people are like, oh, bringing in tons of immigrants. That's beautiful. That's excellent. We're spending $80 billion housing them in 5-star hotels. No biggie.
Yeah. Well, I want a 5-star. Okay. Well, I'm going to fact check you on that when we go to the web extended version.
That might be. I might be exactly.
No. You made the statement. Fact checking. Louderwithcrowder.com or rebel.media for the web extended version. Lauren Southern. Stay tuned. More Louder with Crowder after this. If you like this video, subscribe by clicking my face or the button above. Or it's you. Why don't you have a girlfriend yet?